I think that what Cleve brings to this movement and to this country is a perspective and a unity of vision that we rarely get in any movement. Courage has been honored and privileged to be able to work with Cleve. I've personally been so honored, and I really want to say it again. Too often in the LGBT movement, I think it happens elsewhere, we say, oh, well, you know, what's new, what's new, what's new? Sometimes we do a whole lot better by keeping what's steady, what's smart, and what knows true north. And with that, I'd like to introduce our hero, Cleve Jones.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a privilege to be here, and I'm grateful to all of you for spending a weekend doing this work. This work that we do is always emotional, and it's often very exciting. It can be very dramatic, but really, the most important thing of any movement is discipline and work, and understanding that we're in it for the long haul. I know many people from the Central Coast took the time and the considerable expense to travel to Washington, D.C. in October for the National Equality March. I'm grateful that they did that. You know, when we organized that march, it of course has always brought out all the naysayers and the finger waggers, and they said, oh, you can't do it, it's too complicated, there's not enough time, it costs too much money. And of course we proved them wrong. But you know, over and over you hear people say, okay, you're phone banking, how's that going to change anything? Or you're going to a rally, how's that going to change anything? Or you're having a march, that march won't change it, and registering voters won't change it, and contributing money to candidates that are on our side isn't enough to do it. And they're right, none of these things by themselves are sufficient to move our country to the place where we want it to be. But if we do all of those things, and if we do them over and over and over with great clarity and great resolve and great determination, be assured that we will win. During the 70s, there was two women who sang a lot of songs, and some of you who are older may remember Holly Near and Meg Christian from those days. And they had a song that they sang at the end of almost every march and every rally we went to, and the chorus, don't worry, I'm not going to sing, but the chorus was, can we be like drops of water falling on the stone, splashing, breaking, dispersing in air, weaker than the stone by far. But be aware that as time goes by, the rock will wear away. And now at age 55, after almost 40 years in this movement, I see the rock being worn away, drip by drip, drop by drop, year after year after year. We change hearts and minds all across this country. We achieve victories that even a short period ago were incomprehensible, unimaginable. So I don't ever want you to doubt your power. I think that's very important, especially for those of you who are younger, because I am concerned about this young generation. I think it's sort of ironic that you young people who have access to communications technology that was literally science fiction when I was a kid, literally science fiction. And it's all about communications, and yet it seems to me to be producing a generation that is increasingly disconnected and overwhelmed. I think this is a hard time for young people, and my heart most sincerely goes out to all of you as you struggle through this. But I visit campuses all across the country, and everywhere I hear from young people saying that they don't feel that they have any power. You have power. Every one of you has power. Don't you ever believe for a minute that you can't accomplish what you set your mind to. We can all do this. You don't have to be famous. You don't have to have a lot of money. You can do this work. We can all do it. And sometimes we lose our way, and we can get a little bit lost because These struggles that we're engaged in, they matter to us. They matter to our hearts and our souls. This is about our families and our love and our children. It's so important to us, and sometimes it's really exhausting. So I just want to talk a little bit about a time in the past when I found myself losing my way. And that was really in 1985. And for those of you who are young and gay, it's important for you to understand what it was like then. I lived on Castro Street. If I took you for a walk down Castro Street today, like Lance Black and I did with Rick a few weeks ago, I could tell you a story about every building on those blocks. This is where Henry died. This is where George died. This is where they found Philip's body a month after he died because no one had checked up on him. This is where Georgette starved to death because she was too weak to go out and shop, and no one was taking care of her. This is where Simon committed suicide. This is the building from which Alan was evicted and ended up on the street dying of pneumocystis pneumonia because no one would care for him. By 1985, almost everybody I knew was dead or dying from a disease that no one else in the world was paying any attention to. We had a president then who's been elevated to sainthood in some quarters. His name was Reagan. He did not say the word AIDS aloud until more Americans had been killed by AIDS than died in the entire Vietnam War. And during that time, I felt myself become paralyzed with grief. And I found that my heart was filled with hatred and fear and despair. Hatred for the straight world that was not responding. It was so clear to us what was happening. The danger was so obvious. I flunked biology in high school, but I know there's no such thing as a gay virus. We knew that it would spread. And I think one of the terrible ironies, one of the great lessons about HIV is that look at the consequence of homophobia here. We failed, the one nation on earth that had the resources, the knowledge, and the institutions necessary to stop AIDS in its tracks in the earliest years. We failed, absolutely, and we failed for one reason and one reason only. And every one of you knows what that reason was. They said, let them die. The Republicans, I think it was 86, had a convention in Long Beach, and they had bumper stickers that said, AIDS, it's killing all the right people. That was what we were up against. And so my heart became filled with hate and fear of what was going to happen to me. I was certain I was going to die and that it would be painful. And absolute despair that the world would ever respond in time. And I found myself just shutting down. And I was saved. I was saved by an image that appeared in my head at a candlelight memorial for Harvey Milk and George Moscone on November 27th, 1985. And that week, the death toll in San Francisco hit 1,000. And I knew almost every one of them. They were my friends. We'd been roommates. We'd gone dancing. We'd been lovers. We'd gone to school together. And one by one, I'd watch these people die. I remember standing on the corner of Castro and Market a few days before the annual Candlelight March for Harvey and George, and we were putting up posters with our staple guns to remind people of the annual march. You know, this was before Facebook or internet or cell phones, and I could turn out 10,000 people in 2 hours with a payphone and a staple gun.